You guys know that. She calls Landon on Gannon's phone a couple times that night. Have a trait of antisocial personality disorder? Landon gets a call from Gannon. She knows he's missing, and it's her. Next morning, January 28, 2020, at 6:22 a.m., you see the Tiguan leave. It's gone for 10 minutes. What is she doing? Is it beyond the realm of possibility that she's doing a practice run to see if anybody's watching her? She's about to move the body. Is that beyond the realm of common sense? She again comes back, backs into the garage. Heard evidence that she'd never backed that Tiguan in the back of the garage until that day. They leave. When I say they, Bandit and Gannon's body. Go to the airport. Leave the house at 8:13 a.m. They get to the airport about 8:30 a.m. She's made the decision to rent another car. She even left the house. Is that evidence of psychosis? Or is that evidence of thinking things through? I'm going to leave Gannon's body in the back of that Tiguan at the airport. We're going to pick up a car. Al's didn't care because we don't want to put mileage on my leased vehicle. Al gets off the airplane. He's just worried about Gannon. Where's my son? You think at that moment he cared that she rented a car? But she made a big deal about, hey, I don't want to put miles on my Tiguan. She never searched for Gannon anymore. They go to the interview at Starbucks at approximately 1:30 that afternoon. They have that interview, you heard it. After that interview, she disappears. She takes the rental car and it's gone that afternoon. No one knows where she's at. We do. Is that Life 360 app? We got her going back to the airport at 4:41 p.m. We have a parking ticket that was found inside the white Kia rental car that says she went into the airport at 4:41 p.m. Now, she must have got out of there quickly because she never had to get another ticket when she left. But we know from Life 360, and we know from the telemetry on the Tiguan that the Tiguan didn't leave, that she leaves the airport shortly after that. What is she doing at the airport? Is it that crazy to think that she's checking on Gannon's body in the back of the Tiguan? Does that sound like someone doesn't know right from wrong? Does that sound like someone who's trying to get away with something? At some point that afternoon, as Al Stauch is out looking for his son, he goes to French elementary school. And he goes there because his wife, the defendant, says, I left the Tiguan there. That's a critical moment in the investigation because when he sees the Tiguan is not there, he now knows that his wife had something to do with the disappearance of Gannon. And the investigation starts to look at her. Because he has a second interview that night, he tells the police, I didn't think much about that rental car until I went to French Elementary and I didn't see the Tiguan there like she told me it was. At 5:25 p.m. that night on the 28th, she tells Al Stauch, you need to get an attorney. 7 p.m., she returns back to the airport. She parks that white Kia in short-term parking, keeps the keys, and drives off in the Tiguan and exits the airport at 7:03 p.m., very close to that time. Got the ticket. You've got the ticket. We got the telematics and know exactly where she goes. Got the text messages between her and Harley. Clearly show that she's manipulating Harley, her own daughter. Don't let the police in. Don't talk to the police. The pizza guy? All right, you can let the pizza guy in. If she's manipulating Harley, do you think she's manipulating Gannon? Do you think she's manipulating Lena? Do you think that's manipulation, the video you just saw? We're gonna have to sell stuff because the lady's gonna be upset with us, the owner of the house. Goes to the S curve in Palmer Lake. You know that at 9:23 p.m. She's there for at least 5 minutes. We don't know why actually she's there. We know that the board was found there sometime in mid-February when we started searching there based on the information we had from our Life 360 and the telematics. We know that board had Gannon's blood on it. DNA matched it. Why is she going out to hide the body there? I don't know. Probably because it's a good location. She can't keep it in the Tiguan. She know right from wrong? At 12 a.m., 28th into the 29th, Harley drives out to her employment to pick her up. They leave the Tiguan there overnight. This whole time while she's missing and dumping Dannon's body up in Palmer Lake, Detective Bethel is trying to get her to come in for an interview. Remember that? Letecia Stauch's trying to call her to get in for an interview. Her phone's on airplane. The next morning, Harley drives her to the airport. They drop off the keys to the Kia. When I say drop it off, they threw the keys to the Kia to an attendant, left. Is that rational thinking? Is that someone who didn't want to get caught? Text at 10:25 a.m. on the 29th. I'm on my way to Detective Bethel. The interview. Takes her over an hour and a half to get there. We know that the car is washed on the way. You saw photos of the water dripping off of it when she gets there. The interview she gives, you watched it. I'm not going to get into all the details. I just want to emphasize that she plants seeds. The suitcase is critical. Who says that? I think it was Eduardo at this time. Eduardo also took a suitcase when he took Gannon. She knows where the suitcase is at up in Palmer Lake. On January 30th, 2020, her family shows up. Dakota Lowry, Brenda Awkward, and Deborah Locklear, her mother. Flying to Denver, they rent that Nissan Altima and drive down to Colorado Springs. They pick them up, take them to the extended stay suites hotel. The next morning, they rent that van, Brenda Awkward does, to collect their stuff at the house. They get her suitcase, including that red or pink suitcase that we recover in South Carolina that has blood on it that happens to match Gannon, with a blanket inside it that happens to match Gannon. Pretty strong evidence. You got blood of the victim that you just killed with you when you're arrested on March 2nd. But what happens after they load things up? We know the suitcase was not there because the police were checking everything that came out of that house. We also know what Dakota said about when they exchanged vans, that he saw that very same green suitcase that was under the bridge that day, and she says she had softball equipment in it. But when she gives the interview with the KKTV reporter at 12:10 p.m., well, let's just look at her words. What are her words? We can play this video.
You are?
I am Letecia Stauch, which is Gannon's stepmother.
You've been a part of the investigation since the very first time. You were the last person to see him. Is that right?
Correct.
What did you see when you last saw him?
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about anything with the case. I would more so be willing to talk about how the community needs to have faith and continue to work together and not make these false accusations. And I would never, never, ever hurt this child. And I know there's some questions out there about, okay, so tell me what happens. That's up to the investigations when they end up letting you guys know. But I've cooperated with them, even to the point that we were held with a gun. And my daughter, a 17-year-old who serves our country in the United States Air Force, who has never committed a crime or done anything wrong in her life, was put in handcuffs over the keys that was in her purse so they could take her car. I'm just ready for Gannon to come home. Most importantly, for him to see his family. But second, I am going to be so ecstatic when I'm able to say to people that I hope they have a really sincere apology for all these theories that have came out online, for all the things they said that I have done or people have done. And I just want everyone to know that we're going to find Gannon.
Can you talk to me a little bit about him? I don't know him.
Gannon is so kind and he loves to play video games. That's one of his favorite things. He loves Sonic and Mario. And, you know, he's always helpful. And he was always so helpful with the dogs around the house. And we have 2 little cute dogs. And he was always like a person I could say, Gannon, can you go do this? And he would do it right away. You know, sometimes with kids, we have to remind them and things like that. And that's okay. But he was so sweet and able to help anyone. He could notice when you're sick and say, are you okay? And such a kind heart. We should all come together and wait until the end and see what happens, because Gannon's going to come home.
Any message for Gannon?
The message for Gannon I have is, Gannon, when you get here, you'll be able to truly tell what happened. And then I really hope I get a sincere apology from everyone who has made all those things, especially from my husband.
What we just heard there, that evidence that she might have some antisocial trait. Calmly talk about that to a news reporter. She's done. I failed to mention Amanda Van Est, who was the same nurse who examined her for injuries based on what she was telling people. First interview that she was raped, and she examined her head and found no injuries. But what else did she do? She also told you about M1 holes, and if she would have noticed anything that would require her to have a doctor examine her for an M1 hold, she would have done it. No evidence of mental disease, no evidence of psychosis. And this is the 29th, 2 days after she killed him. We know that a GPS tracker was later placed on that Nissan Altima, and you know where she went when she disappeared for 2 hours and told her family that she was going to a pet store. Got her right back at the Esker. She picks up Gannon's body, puts him in the trunk of that Nissan Altima, leaves the board out there, later found, and drives back to the hotel after she goes and gets some more dog outfits. And when she gets back to the extended stay suites, she's got to move Gannon's body from the trunk to the van that Brenda Awkward rented earlier that day. We know that had to happen because of Dakota Lowry's testimony. Her and Dakota go to the budget rental van place the next morning, February 1st, and they've got to move all the suitcases from one van to another. That's when he sees the green suitcase, knew something was suspicious about it. You saw his reaction. Had to get on a witness stand. He got subpoenaed here to come here. I think he felt manipulated by this defendant. You know the rest of the story. She drives across country with Harley. She's using the Ford Motor Company to check into hotels. They got a little scheme you saw in video. Harley would go in with the dogs. She'd check in as one person. All rational thinking. It's also by social personality traits, perhaps. They drive all the way to Florida. They get there February 4th. Another divine intervention. The power up at 4:36 in the morning in between the hotel and where Gannon's body is found. Every 24 or 25 hours it happens. It happens at that moment. That tells you that van is on the move in the middle of the night. Tells you she dumped Gannon's body that night or the early morning hours of February 4th. I'm going to go through fast now because I've been talking way too long. I want to talk about the pretext phone calls. You know all the stories. I'm not going to get into the details. Eduardo, immunity, Quincy Brown, several different versions of that. Bike accident, Uncle Matt. One that significant, and she says, I'm so sorry, Al, for lying to you. I'm going to tell you the truth. I wasn't in the car when I left Petco. He wasn't in the truck. Fake pregnant lady with cash. She's laundering money. She's arrested on March 2nd, 2020. She comes up with a story of now how it's Angel, the babysitter, who did it. Suitcase with Gannon's blood found on her. We've got all the searches on her phone that I'm not going to go through. You just saw it a few days ago. But what I'd like to talk about is what people who are truly legally insane do under these circumstances. Because there are people who are truly legally insane, ladies and gentlemen. They don't act like that. If they don't have the capacity to know right from wrong, they're not going to hide the body. They're going to act like nothing happened. They may even do the crime if someone's there watching them because they don't know that it's wrong. Do you think she would have done this to Gannon if anyone was in the room with her? Of course not. They also don't lie. There's no reason to lie because they don't think it's wrong. So they come in and they say things like, my God, I heard a voice that I thought was the devil. And the devil made me do this. I had no choice. Why are you even talking to me about it? That's what we're talking about when we talk about a severe mental disease or defect. When we're talking about the capacity to form the intent or the capacity to use judgment and reflection, I'm going to refer you back to Mice and Men, the book. I read that a long time ago, but I still remember it. It's about George and Lenny during the Depression. And George is a smart one. Lenny has some severe mental illnesses. Lenny likes to pet rabbits. He's such a big guy that he doesn't even know his own strength. So he would pet rabbits to the point where he would kill them. That's what we're talking about when you don't have the capacity to form the intent to kill because the mental illness doesn't allow you to. We're not talking about someone who makes choices to get weapons to kill with. I appreciate your patience. I know I've talked a long time here, much longer than I thought, and I apologize for that. There's only one right verdict in this case. That's guilty to each and every charge that she's charged with. First-degree murder after deliberation, first-degree murder, child under the age of 12, tampering with the deceased body, and tampering with physical evidence.
Can we switch over? Yeah, I did. The